and welcome back to Fuzzy Dirty Gaming and a day 2 update for my Frostblade Slayer. I've managed to farm about probably 7 to 8 divines worth of currency, so decided to switch to Claw and Shield. I'm not sure I spent all of that, but at a safe estimate I'd say it's probably about 8 divines, the majority of that going onto the Claw. I'll go over my gear and how I crafted it and how much it costs later on. I've now got my 4 Void Stones. I just still need 2 unique maps for completion. I just have been lazy. I essentially need Aziri's Vault and I need the Sun and Ice map, which I could probably buy cheap now, just haven't got around to it. And the 2 points aren't going to make or break anything. In terms of currency and how I made that, I've farmed Destructive Play, Blight and Delirium. All of the strategies were just out and go. I haven't spent a penny on Scarabs because I just wanted to run a strategy that didn't cost me any money, so anything I got out of it is going to be profit. My profit actually came from a combination of selling blighted maps. They sell really well, but they didn't seem to drop that regularly. Cluster jewels are insanely valuable. Just a medium projectile cluster jewel started off at 60 chaos when I was selling it. They're still around 20 chaos. Same with fire damage over time and some other medium clusters. There's some chaos large clusters that are also worth a lot of money. Simulacrums are worth decent money and you turn them over quite quickly farming Delirium. And then invitations, you get your Maven Writs and some Awakened Gems. I'm still really loving the build. It's handling all the lead mechanics really well. Even the tower encounter that a lot of melee folks are struggling with, because Frostblades has projectiles and you can chain the explosions with Herald of Ice, it's working really well. Even before I switched into Herald of Ice, I still didn't have an issue with these encounters. I think I failed 1 out of 8. There's still tons of scope to improve the build, as I'm still missing a Lethal Pride, and since I no longer need to boss, I could definitely replace the Perseverance Belt because I can just run a Silver Flask to get Onslaught. The Tincture is good for burst damage, but I'm definitely at the stage now where I don't really need it. So to replace it, it's probably just going to be a juicy Stygian Virus with life, elemental damage with attacks and resistances. There's also some good Conqueror mods you can try and get lucky and slam on with an Exalt. There's a decent one for Veritania, which I think is a damage one, and then El Hesmin, you might get percentage life. However, his orbs are chaos related, so since a lot of people are playing poison, that might be quite expensive. Once I've replaced my belt, I'm really not sure what the plan is after that. The build is already good enough to do everything that I like to do in the game. It's not going to go and trounce T17s, it's never going to do uber bosses. So for me, the build's pretty much finished, but I'm just going to keep playing, and if I'm finding the build fun, I'll put more currency into it. The reason I say don't do Ubers on the build is this build requires ramp up. If you don't have frenzy charges, your damage is about a quarter of what it should be. A lot of the Uber bosses have phases. We only have like a 10% chance to get a frenzy on hit. So bossing for this build is pretty much a definite no-no. But anything where you can sustain hits on one enemy or just chain kill monsters is really, really good because you stack endurance, frenzy, and we can generate power charges. Now that I've got a weapon with hits cannot be evaded, it's allowed me to drop precision. Now the sensible option would have been to add something like Arctic armor to get more defenses, but I wanted to have some fun, so I've slotted in Herald of Ice just to get some nice juicy explosions, and it does help a little bit with the lead mechanic. Doesn't do a ton, but it gives a little bit of damage, a little bit clear, and it looks awesome. Now overall the build is absolutely blasting, and I hope anyone who followed it is also having fun. The one gripe I have about the league, and it is a very minor one, is that the NPC that you protect seems like she's made of paper. In the reveal, I think I mentioned it in my first update video, they said you don't really have to worry about her, she's just there as like a lore thing. The enemies are all going to swarm you, she won't die. She does. You literally have to protect her 24/7 in the encounters in the fortresses, and it does get a little bit hairy. If you don't get the buffs that heal her, it gets really, really difficult. I'm not going to go through my Atlas trees because they are just dead simple. There's nothing complicated about them. You could build much better yourself. For Delirium, I just took all of the Delirium nodes apart from the ones that extend or decrease the fog duration. I took all the Seer and Exile nodes to try and get some currency and pack size along the way, and then some map drop nodes. That's about it. For Blight, I've got Shrines, I've got all the Blight nodes, and then I've got some nodes to add Scarabs. Again, not putting any Scarabs in, so it's just a bog standard tree that could probably be much better. A Destructive Play I've paired with Essences, and then more Scarab drops and obviously boss map drops. But I found that before I switched to Claw and Shield, Destructive Play was a little bit of a struggle. I didn't die that often, but it just took a little while to get the bosses down. I definitely died in the invitations. Now I'm a bit stronger now, I've switched to Claw and Shield. it feels much more comfortable. So with that out of the way, let's go over the character, skill gems and tree, and then we'll close out the video. So the character's now at level 95. In terms of gear, I'll run through that next, and then we'll go through the skill gem links. It's going to be very similar to my POB, but with looking for things, it might be that you find something that's slightly different to the POB because it was cheaper, or you craft something yourself so it ends up slightly different. But overall, the POB is absolutely fine to follow. It kind of follows the same build ideas. So in terms of the claw, I've got a fractured cold damage claw. I've got T1 attack speed, well actually it's T0 attack speed, T1 crit chance, hits can't be evaded, LE penetration. The reason I've done this is because I want to drop precision. What you probably would aim to do if you like playing around with the tree mechanic and you're happy waiting, I got fed up trying, is you want a claw with cold damage, fizz and percentage fizz. That would be ideal because then you can convert that physical to cold and get even more damage. I just decided to go straight up cold. I bought this claw, I crafted it with deafening essences of zeal. I've then multi-modded to hits can't be evaded and attacks with this weapon penetrate elemental resistances. The reason for going fractured cold is that it allows me to suffixes cannot be changed and scour if I've got an open prefix, whereas if it wasn't fractured I wouldn't be able to do that because you'd remove the cold mod. I just thought it was a slightly easier way of crafting it. I've then done the quality and harvest for crit, so we've got crit chance on this claw of 10.65 and then almost 2 attacks per second. We're still running the heat shiver helmet. At some point I'll get a +1 power charge one. Haven't looked at the price of them, but I've got about 20 chaos, so I'm pretty sure it's out my budget. Because we're now away from Whitewind, we need a shield, we need to get some more defenses into the build. So we've got some block, suppression, chance to avoid LA ailments, massive life and some evasion. The amulet is very similar to the POB. It's lots of attributes, crit multi, life, damage while leeching. The ring is definitely the item that could be replaced. It's pretty garbage. It's intelligence, resistance, life, and a little bit of cold damage. The reason for the crafted fire damage is I don't have any source of fire damage, and we get more damage depending on the number of ailments on the enemy. So this mod equates to the fire damage and 33% increase elemental damage, which will go up once I put catalyst onto the ring. The body armor is pretty good, but body armors are so cheap now. I bought this base for about 12 chaos. This is a T2 fractured armor and evasion. Last league, these were about 3 to 4 divines. This league, because you can print pretty much any item you want if you've got the patience. I don't. I'd rather go and buy it for 12 chaos. And then I've just used envy essences to get chaos res. Tried to avoid life because I want to use the life mastery. As mentioned, we're using the taming. The gloves, I don't think I've changed. They're just big life, attack speed, little bit of chaos resistance, and then a suffix to craft. Ideally, I'd redo these so that the open prefix is for crafting, and then I can do more damage while leeching. We've now dropped Dark Ray Vectors. They're a good starter boot, but there's so much better you can do with rare items. So with this, we can fit in a massive amount of avoid elemental ailments, some resistances, some life, and 30% constant movement speed. Still rocking Perseverance. As I said, it's probably something I'll get rid of next because we can just add a silver flask and it gives me everything that Perseverance does since we're not stacking armor. Flasks have stayed the same. I've just put the proper suffixes on them. I haven't rolled them to be the best prefix and suffix. Same with the tincture. I've just got some form of penetrate elemental resistances. Quicksilver, I've gone for movement speed. And then, yeah, life flask, which I crafted in the campaign. I don't care. It's good enough. With Overleech, we very rarely need to use a life flask anyway. In terms of the skill links at the moment, we've got automation linked to steel skin and more duration. If you do use this, you actually still need to activate the automation gem. So if you go into your skills bar, it's this blue circular hand here. You need to put it onto your toolbar and activate it. So if we put it onto this slot here, you can see I can then turn it off. Once you turn it on, it will stay on unless you remove the gem or the item that you've got on. It doesn't activate in hideout. You just need to make sure this buff is up there. In the helmet, we've just got whirling blades and faster attacks. I might link this up to live tap because I have had issues with mana where I'm really quickly whizzing around the map. Flame dash just for when I can't use whirling blades. We got our summon skitterbots linked to bone chill. Skitterbots apply shock. Bone chill increases the cold damage that enemies take. Herald of Ice, which I've just slotted in because I freed up the mana from precision. We've got an Enduring Cry on its own. Then we have a Flesh and Stone on its own. Blood Rage, and then Precision. Precision, actually, we don't use, so we can remove it. These gems don't need to be linked. And then the 6th link is Frostblades. I bought a 2120 for about 12 Chaos. Ice Blight support, Multi-Strike, Inspiration, Awakened Added Cold, and then increased crit damage. In our boots, we've got our Assassin's Mark setup. Really important that this is 20% because it's where you're going to get power charges from. And then we got that linked to a mark on hit and life tap. There's been a few changes in the skill tree. I'm now anointing Disciple of the Unyielding because these points leading to it literally give nothing to our build. So it's 4 points just to get endurance charge on kill. So I'm anointing it instead. Same thing with duels as before, as much crit multi as I can get. Where things have changed is we are now running a cluster duel because I've managed to drop all of the accuracy nodes we had here and these nodes here. The cluster duel I picked up cheap is Smite the Weak, Feed the Fury, and then the back node doesn't matter, but this is Calamitous. So essentially just wanted a space for more duels and more damage and attack speed when leeching. I've had to take this one little mana leech node here because I don't have anything on the tree. Not taking any leech nodes. The Feed the Fury here deals with my life leech. This little node here deals with my mana leech. And then we've obviously gone claws instead of daggers. And one change I have made, which isn't in the POB, is I picked up a Light of Meaning crit chance duel. I think it was 40 or 50 chaos. Essentially what this does is every node you've got allocated on the tree, it will give you 5% crit chance. I was okay just about when I had Flask and Assassin's Mark and power charges. But what I want to make sure is that I'm 100% in any situation. So in a map where I don't mark an enemy because it's a rare or unique, I want to be on 100% with just my flasks, and then on a boss where I won't use my flasks all the time, I want to be 100% with Assassin's Mark, and this just about gets me there. That's it for the video. Day 2 update done. There probably won't be a day 3 update unless I make loads of progress, because I want the next video to be the next stage of the build, which realistically might be 20, 30, 40 Divines investment, because it's at this point where it gets a bit more expensive to try and scale it outside of the things I've already mentioned, like a Lethal Pride and a new belt. Hope you're enjoying the league, whatever build you're playing. Thank you very much for watching. Take care and see you in the next one.